Cleo's tone of voice is really unique. Essentially, our whole company started because our CEO designed an algorithm to spot when he was about to go into his overdraft. And he rigged it up so that he would receive a text message, and the text message would say, "Hey, idiot, stop spending so much money. You're going to go below zero." And we built an app around that idea, right? Like people, like getting told off by a robot is funny, right? And when it's accurate, it's funnier.
Hello and welcome to Customer Friendship Conversations, the show where we bring you the latest trends, tools, and insights into delivering customer experience as it's meant to be. I'm your host, my name is Maurits Pieper, and I work at Dixa. And AI is one of the hottest topics around right now. It's an exciting new field that has the potential to completely revolutionize how we approach customer experience and really to do it from the ground up. That's where today's guest comes in, Daniel Bunton, and he's the head of customer support at Cleo AI, and he knows exactly how to create game-changing customer experience with AI, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So, welcome to the listeners of today's session of Customer Friendship Conversations. We have a very special guest here today, but before we get into that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Maurits Pieper. I lead the partnerships here at Dixa, and Dixa, for those who don't know, is a customer service platform. We focus on helping brands serve and build relationships with their end customers. And what I like about my job is I work very closely with marketing, customer success, and product teams, and specifically working closely on how partners and integrations and new developments like AI can support our customer support teams. Today's topic, we're going to be calling it Creating Game-Changing Customer Experiences with AI. And the reason why I'm specifically excited about today's session is the guest and the company that he represents. AI is not just kind of an add-on that they're testing. It is very much part of their core business model. So I'd like to introduce Daniel Bunton from Cleo AI. Cleo is an assistant to essentially personal finance, and he leads up the customer support team there. But I'm not going to do the introduction more than that. If Daniel, you could introduce yourself, your role, but perhaps also how you ended up at Cleo.
Hey Moritz, great to see you again. Thank you so much for having me. I'm the head of customer support at Cleo AI, which I want to be very clear from the outset here. I am non-technical, so I understand AI, but I do not propose to be an expert at all. I'll be about Cleo first. Cleo is a financial AI, so it gives financial assistance and advice to millions of people in the US. Our company mission is to fight for the world's financial health. So we really want to take financial stress away from people. And that is such a major cause of stress for a lot of people. A bit about me, I went to drama school, actually. I studied to become an actor, and like most actors, I became a waiter. So found my way into customer support through that journey, and then found my way into startups eventually, and that's a little bit about me.
Before we get into some of the substance of the topic today, tell me a little bit about, when you start the week, when you start the day, is there anything that particularly gets you excited about jumping out of bed and getting on the job and working with the team?
People are what get me excited. Being a head of a department, you'd hope that's the answer. Working on helping people develop their careers, pouring into people in the way that people have poured into me in the past. Yeah, that's what really gets me excited about starting my job every day.
Let's break into a little bit of the topic on AI. It is such a growing and an expanding topic. Probably lots of the listeners have read or heard so much about AI, but could you just share some of your initial opinions about AI in general? Just share some of your initial thoughts so the listeners can understand where your mindset is when it comes to the topic of AI in the world of CX.
Yeah, great question. I'm hugely optimistic. I think that, AI is going to change our daily experience. About 18 months ago, when ChatGPT officially went live, the world exploded with, about 6 months of high, intense curiosity. And I think that has kind of died down over the last 12 months or so. And we're now experiencing okay, what does this actually mean for our day-to-day experience? And I really think the sky's the limit. So yeah, I'm excited about it. You'd hope I am working at an AI company, but
maybe when it comes to you, it doesn't have to be necessarily related to Cleo, but have things changed personally in how you use AI in your personal life?
Yeah, definitely. So Cleo actually gives everyone a like enterprise level subscription to ChatGPT. We can go to town on ChatGPT and not hit any message caps. Whenever I'm facing a work problem, I will generally go to GPT and go, this is the problem I'm facing. This is what I want to achieve. How and where should I start? And so what I see it as is like a brainstorming partner, right? Other ways in which I've used it, I can't believe I'm admitting this publicly, but I used it to design I used it to design a gift card for my girlfriend. Um, and she's now going to find out that I used AI, and I might be in trouble for that.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit more about the challenge and things that the listeners can start to apply, because I'm sure what you're about to share is very applicable to what they're currently seeing.
Sure.
There's AI and all the benefits that it can provide, but I think one of those initial steps is how do you go about implementing it, right? 'Cause some people don't take the step, other people are very cautious, and some people just dive right in right away. How are you seeing potential users of AI start to implement it?
I think first and foremost, like we should acknowledge that everyone listening to this is going to be coming at it from a very different perspective. So, for
Yeah.
example, the experience of someone who works at an AI company is going to be very different to the experience of someone who's working for an e-commerce company. I think there are two main options that most of our listeners, if I imagine, would be facing, and the choice is whether to build something themselves with AI, working with a large language model like ChatGPT. You would need massive resource to be able to do that. So access to like developers who can build a
Mm.
pipeline with OpenAI for you. But then I imagine the majority of our listeners are going to be in the situation where they're looking to buy a product that uses AI to help solve some of their problems. So yeah, I think they're the two main solutions. And I imagine our listeners are looking to deflect more conversations. Essentially, they want to provide more instantaneous answers and just generally provide a better customer experience.
And I know you spoke about it just a little bit just there. Could you expand on, what are some of those challenges that people typically run into when they're being asked perhaps by their exec team, perhaps by, competitors, they're seeing their
Mm.
competitors do it. What are those challenges when it comes to actually implementing it into their business?
So I imagine a lot of CEOs out there saw an article that Klarna put out. I think they were claiming that they were achieving 70% success rate in deflections with AI. So I
Mm,
imagine a lot of head of CX experiences are like facing that question from the CEO of what are we doing in this space. I think it's a great question, right? Because I think you should use that opportunity to ask for the budget to go and do stuff in that space. There's an appetite, and so often CS and customer experience teams are put down at the bottom of the totem pole, last team to get investment. So I think there's a really great opportunity here to provide better outcomes for our users. I would immediately pivot the conversation though to overall success rate, like very wide range success rate, into very specific quality metrics. How satisfied are our users with this experience? If you are not measuring that, then I think it's very dangerous. I think I'm not going to name names here, but like we did we did one test where we tested an AI bot and we just let it run wild for a day and a half, and it got trained on our knowledge base, so our FAQ articles basically, and we let it take
hmm
about 1,000 conversations. I personally read through 100 of those conversations. We think it did a good job 33% of the time. It was claiming success
Okay.
60% of the time. It's really hard to measure success here, and I would urge caution to any CEO that is like a bit gung ho about this and thinks that this is going to revolutionize their team and like costs are going to drop overnight.
In terms of managing expectations, like you hear a
Mm,
lot of uh, buzzwords being thrown out of deflection, resolution, satisfaction. Like,
mm.
how do you navigate those conversations? Because you see those skyrocketing numbers of 70, 80% numbers of deflection, but like you just mentioned yourself, well, what about the experience? Like, what about it actually being a successful interaction with AI? Like, how do you manage deflection levels versus resolution levels?
what I would do in an ideal world, if I had some resource, I would A/B test, right? So if I was to implement an
Hmm.
AI bot, I would make sure that we kept 50% of our traffic on the old system, and the percentages are up to you here, whether you go 90-10 or 50-50. I just want to monitor retention. So
Yep.
for us, we're a subscriber based company, so we want to measure the retention of a user. We also want to monitor customer satisfaction in all of this. So if we're not measuring, and if we don't see a massive difference between those two, customer retention and customer satisfaction, between the two sides of the A/B
Yep.
test, then I think you've got a pretty good case that the AI bot is doing a good job.
Sounds like setting expectations is a massive, massive piece of that. I like how we've covered how you manage expectations from the exec team to stakeholders like yourself or your colleagues. But of course, then there's on the actual end customer. At Cleo, how do you empower your customer base with AI? Like in the sense of
Mm.
how do you continue to drive adoption, drive further trust? I would imagine, and you can definitely educate me on this, if you're trying to bring in new product features that Cleo would be able to do for your end customers, how do you make sure that you have a sufficient level of trust and empowerment to your customer base that they'll use your AI for those new features and use cases?
I think my current role, like at my current company, we're playing in a very different field than I think most kind of head of CS is out there. So anyone who downloads Clio has downloaded an app called
Hmm.
Clio AI, right? So they are buying into AI right from the moment they start engaging with that product. If you're running an e-commerce site, for example, it's a different situation. And so when they are having a problem, that might be the first time that you introduce AI to their experience. So when they start reaching out to customer support, they're suddenly engaging with an AI bot. You have to be prepared that at least 20% of your customer base really hates AI and does not trust it, does not want to be involved in it. And just, you've got to give them an
Yeah.
option to get out of it. So you always want an option which goes, hey, if you're struggling with this, just click this button and you'll go to a human. So I would always want to provide that option for them. Then I think you've got the other 80%, and this 80-20 thing I'm just really pulling out of thin air. This is not research. Like I say, my company is everyone's bought into AI who downloads the product. They're willing to try it. They're willing to like give it a test, and you've got to impress them in the first 3 seconds, I think, right? Like if they know they're talking to an AI bot, they're going to be like, what can this actually do? Like I've been through bots before. I've been through useless
Yep.
bots. I've been through bots that suck. Any gain we can make there is going to impress people pretty quickly, and they're going to actually start to change their perspective and like, oh, maybe this bot can help me. If in the first second you say something like, where's my order? And the bot says, I didn't understand that. Could you rephrase it? Like, if that happens, you've lost. But if we can get AI to the point where it understands what users want and can perform actions for the user on the back end, that is next level. What we're at right now is bots can regurgitate information. Next step, can they do things for you?
My gut feeling, you may know better than I do, but that doesn't seem to be too far away. If not, we're already kind of touching those actions. I think one of the next pieces I'd like to get your insights on is your product, your company is performing a lot of very interesting and beneficial use cases for personal finance to end customers. And you want to further develop your product, but you also want to manage how your current customers, future prospects, or future customers are adopting their expectations and their attitudes towards AI. Like, do you think just year over year over year, the population that is interesting for your company are just going to be more open to having AI do more in their lives?
Yeah, I think the population that AI can do something for is going to radically increase over the coming years. So for us in particular, right, like financial information, we're very constricted by banking systems, right? So everyone's
Hmm.
financial status is controlled by banking systems, their financial history, their transaction history, which is what the key thing that we use to kind of provide insights for users. It's all tied into their bank. Every country has a different banking system built on different APIs, built on different tech, built on different levels of legacy technology. That's why neobanks are moving incredibly fast comparatively, because they don't have entire decades worth of user history on legacy systems that they want to maintain. They can build things from scratch in a brand new way. That's what's really limiting our population growth for our product right now, right? Connecting to banking systems in every country is really different. So that's what's limiting us. It's definitely not AI is the limitation.
Are there any things on the roadmap that you can share that you're excited to come out and start beta testing or just sharing with your customers in early access? New features that you think are really going to take your product to another level?
We've been doing this for like 7 years already. So the LLM, but like explosion, which happened 18 months ago, really accelerated our growth. But like we were already kind of doing most of the stuff. It definitely lifted our game though. Like it made us better. One thing we love doing is helping people save. So like we use AI to look at a user's transaction history and say, okay, this month we predict that you can afford to save $78. If you click yes below, we'll take that money from your bank account and we'll put it into a little savings wallet for you. So nice. Things like that, ways in which we can like analyze past spending and predict how much they can actually afford to save. That stuff we're really excited about. Other things we're really excited about is helping people improve their credit score. So we have a credit builder card on the market, and if people use it, their credit score will go up. And for users in the US, credit score is an impact on your daily life. For example, in the UK, like credit score comes up, but nowhere near as much as it comes up for Americans. It's incredibly expensive to be poor. Poor people are paying by far higher interest rates than rich people. It's so broken. It's not how it should work. They are not the people who can spare the funds. We've got rich people, there's a genuine cost of living crisis happening right now, right? Like we have richer people struggling to afford going to the pub the way that they used to and having a fun night out the way that they used to. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, we have poor people not being able to feed their families. Improving people's credit score is like the one thing that we think could be a massive game changer in the system. So that's what we want to do. We want to improve people's financial life and decrease their stress.
That's probably what I love about your business model is you're taking a more cost-efficient way to provide personal finance advice and support to those that might not be able to financially get that. So if you're helping them with their credit score, if you're helping them with saving, with personal financing, and doing it in a interactive and personalized way, there's probably no wonder why your business is booming in the way it is. Could you give me an example of how it could be a funny one, it could be a weird one. How are you providing personalized experience to your end customers with Cleo?
Cleo's tone of voice is really unique. Essentially, our whole company started because our CEO designed an algorithm to spot when he was about to go below zero, right? About to go into his overdraft. And he rigged it up so that he would receive a text message a few days before that. And the text message would say, hey, idiot, stop spending so much money. You're going to go below zero. And we built an app around that idea, right? Like people, like getting told off by a robot is funny, right? And when it's accurate, it's funnier. So Moritz, I don't know what your eating habits are like, but one of the first things we do for everyone who downloads the app is roast them, right? So we will analyze their transaction history. And if we see McDonald's is like a regular occurrence on someone's thing, we might say to them, listen, Moritz, if you keep doing this with McDonald's, I'm going to start listing it as a recurring weekly expense. So that kind of like humor and coming at people from a different angle really raises their awareness, and it's different, right? Like anyone can look at a graph. People get bored by graphs and they don't want to look at them and they don't want to understand their finances. But if you can get roasted by a robot for spending too much money on Amazon, like honestly, we set up a whole different thing just for Amazon, and we set up a whole stream which is like analyze someone's Amazon spending. And the numbers that we see is like wild. So we've got users who are like, hey, guess how much you've spent at Amazon over the past 12 months? And we show them three numbers, which are wildly different. One of them's like $3,000, one of them's $8,000, and one of them's $12,000. And the users will always pick the lowest one. And no surprise, it's always the highest one. And so getting people to engage with their finances like that, not hearing it from a person is very important, right? Because a person telling you you're an idiot and should stop spending is very different to a robot telling you. Finding that line is really difficult. And actually, tone of voice has got us into some trouble in the past. The way in which we prompt the large language models is really important, right? We tell our large language models, we want you to sound like big sister with an attitude, like kind of loving, but also not afraid to speak the truth, and we'll give it to you straight kind of thing. That has been good and bad. I mean, in one situation, a user said, I'm expecting a baby and I don't know what to do. And the AI responded saying, wow, congratulations, that's such great news. Let's talk about how we can get your finances in order for the baby. And so you're like, wow, beautiful. That's incredible. What a great response. That all like feels emotional. On the other hand, we had a user say, give me a refund right now. And the AI knew what the user's name was and said, calm your tits, Crystal. Which charge do you want to talk about getting refunded for? And so in that situation, we're like, oh, God. Right. And so, for example, in that situation, we go, okay, AI, you are not allowed to say these words. So yeah, we have a whole list of words that our AI is not allowed to use. Unfortunately, tits is now one of them.
Thank you for the example. I think that's definitely a unique experience, but a good learning opportunity to train the AI. Like, how do you measure the success? Do people give feedback if they don't like that interaction, if they use it very frequently and that they engage with your product? Like, how do you know which of these product features are gaining traction and which ones are not?
Yeah, so we measure like daily engagement with chat and daily engagement with other product areas. One thing we really do analyze is NPS. So we're really into NPS. We look at App Store reviews. We read all this stuff. App Store reviews is where we hear a lot of praise for Cleo's tone of voice, and like people love it. Like for our other products around the AI, we're also looking at NPS and how much retention we've got there.
You've been with the company now for what, almost 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years. It was 30 people when I joined, and I think we're 350 now.
Then it's quite the journey. Are there any, things that you would have loved to know from the start in terms of how to approach customer service or customer experience?
I think what you need to succeed in the early days is really different to what you need to succeed as the later you get in the company journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in customer experience, in the early days, you want real problem solvers. You want people who are like going to go, okay, what is happening for this user? How can we fix this? What's here? What's here? What's here? What's the data? How can I see this? But when you're going through serious growth, suddenly at one point that completely changes, and you actually don't want people to leave a pathway too quickly, right? Once you understand a user journey and how it can be resolved, you kind of want people who can follow a playbook and are happy doing that. I find it's not the same people, right? The people you need in a 50-person company for CS is very different to the people you need in a 400-person company for CS. I wish I'd have learned that earlier and found out ways to serve both of those types of people, right? They're equally good and they provide good value, but they're made for different types of roles.
Before we kind of wrap up today's session, I know, like you mentioned at the beginning, there's probably going to be a wide scope of listeners on today's session, but any last tips or small pieces of advice you could give to people that are just trying to get into AI, just want to make the first step because an exec asked them to look into it because they're getting beat up by competitors? Like, how does one take that first step to at least make progress in understanding it, potentially adopting it into their respective businesses?
I'll get a little bit technical here. There was a case with Air Canada just recently. Air Canada promised someone a refund when it didn't actually align with the policy, and the user, like the customer, like took it for granted. Like the AI bot told it would be fine. I think the customer screenshotted the conversation, and the courts actually ruled in that customer's favor, and Air Canada had to refund that user even though it was against their policy. What's really important here is understanding intent. When a user comes into a conversation, user or customer, they have an intent. They want something. They're trying to understand something. Using AI at that point to understand the intent is the best thing we have right now to understand that intent. Where AI is not so good is at providing the same answer every time to a user. So I would say you want AI at the top of the funnel to understand the intent of a user. You do not want AI getting involved in telling user what your refund policy is. You want AI to send a user down a pre-written pathway that clearly outlines the refund policy. And then, if you're using an advanced product, you want AI to listen to the rest of the conversation to understand if the user has a second problem, so their intent has changed during it. For someone out there who is hearing an executive saying, get into AI, just go, do it, do it, do it, be careful and really only use AI at the top of the funnel to put a user in the right flow. Do not let AI run rampant with your users, especially where potential refunds are concerned, especially when users are really stressed, and always give users an option to get out, right? And get actually straight to a human. That's my key advice for someone who's under pressure to start using AI.
So just to summarize, reason why I like today's session so much, Daniel, is obviously we'll learn more about Cleo, how you see the impact of AI in the customer experience and customer service space. I like the sections where you outlined how does one go about actually implementing it, and if you do come across challenges, well then how do you overcome them? Now, again, like you mentioned, there's so many potential listeners on this call, so I like the more general approach that you took because we don't want to give specific advice just for one industry or one type of company. And then, of course, those final thoughts where we've been discussing how do you get your end customers to engage more with AI, trust it more? Is it going to go up in terms of acceptance to the public year over year over year? So overall, I'd like to say thank you for joining us today. I think it was really cool that you were able to join and get a better understanding of how you, Cleo, take a good look at customer experience, especially with AI. But then I'd also like to thank today's listeners on the call of Customer Friendship Conversations. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you're following us on whichever podcast platform that you like. And if you're interested to learn more about customer friendship and customer service, then check out Dixa.com. But thank you very much for joining. And thanks again, Daniel, for speaking to us.
Thanks, Moritz. Absolute pleasure.
Co-fruition.